Welcome to Scarlet Tavern. Grab a drink, take a seat, and let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, believers, skeptics, and everyone in between, welcome to the grand finale of our MK Ultra saga. If you've been with us from the beginning, you've already strapped in for a roller coaster ride through the darkest corners of government experimentation and psychological manipulation. But fear not, this isn't the end, it's the climax, the crescendo. The moment when all the tangled threads of conspiracy theory, covert operations, and the human psyche converge into one mind-bending finale. So buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the twilight zone of MK Ultra for one last dance with the devil in the details. Let's make this finale one for the history book, shall we? This is Scarlet Tavern. Alright. The final of MK Ultra. So
yeah.
We are coming to the wrap up. A couple more projects, experiments, and then we are going to wrap up MK Ultra, and then we move along to some fun stuff.
I still hate you.
And Hill Kids will be our next one.
I hate you.
So in the 1960s, the Central Intelligence Agency initiated Project Acoustic Kitty, part of their Directorate of Science and Technology, with the aim of using feline agents for espionage on the Kremlin and Soviet embassies. The project involved surgically implanting a microphone in the cat's ear canal, small radio transmitter at the base of its skull, and a thin wire into its fur, enabling the cat to discreetly record and transmit sound from its surroundings. To address the issue of distraction, the cat's sense of hunger was also addressed in a separate operation. The cost of Project Acoustic Kitty was estimated to be around $20 million, according to Victor Marchetti, a former CIA officer. The first mission for Acoustic Kitty was to eavesdrop on two individuals in a park near the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. However, the mission ended abruptly when the cat was hit and permanently killed by a taxi shortly after being released. This account was challenged in 2013 by Robert Wallace, a former director of the Office of Technical Service, claiming that the project was terminated due to difficulties in training the cat, and the cat lived a long, happy life after the equipment was removed. Despite subsequent attempts, the project was deemed a failure and was ultimately discontinued, resulting in a total loss. The decision to cancel Project Acoustic Kitty came in 1967, as outlined in a closing memorandum that cited the impracticality of training cats for short-distance movement in real foreign environments. Although declassified CIA documents in 2001 revealed details of the project, including its failures and challenges, some accounts suggest that there were instances of success.
Those assholes!
The fucking cat just... and you just...
Well, according to Robert Wallace, that never happened. I can see
it's a cover-up.
I can really see, just imagine in some...
Well, why did it take... Okay, so the things were declassified in 2001.
Yeah.
Why is he all of a sudden speaking about it in 2013 then?
Because people are looking into it more.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, I could just imagine back then in some laboratory in Langley, the director is literally doing like an inspection of like what's going on, and there's just a bunch of his agents and scientists running around trying to wrangle a bunch of cats to put radio transmitters, and he probably is like, cancel.
Yeah.
Dean.
Yeah, I mean, you don't train cats. Cats train you.
Yeah, actually, folks, here's you touched on a secret episode we're going to do, how cats actually took over the CIA.
Yeah. So, the experiment on dogs.
Yeah, this is... if you were upset about the cats...
You're going to be more upset about the dogs.
Yeah.
So the CIA reportedly conducted a clandestine experiment in 1963, as revealed in recently declassified documents, involving the creation of remote-controlled dogs through brain surgery for a mind control project. The documents, posted on the Black Vault, a site specializing in declassified government records, detail how researchers implanted devices inside the skulls of 6 dogs and guided their movements in an open field using electrical stimulation to their brain's reward centers. The goal of the project was to assess the feasibility of controlling a dog's behavior remotely in an open field. The electrical stimulation targeted deep brain structures, leveraging the well-known reward effect and the tendency to induce and sustain movement in a direction associated with continued stimulation. However, the experiment was not without its complications. Some of the dogs experienced side effects such as infections from poorly healing head wounds. In an attempt to mitigate these issues, the CIA later experimented with the embedding of electrodes entirely within a mound of dental cement on the skull. By 1967, it appears the use of remote-controlled dogs in operational settings was improbable, as suggested in a letter from that year outlining the limitations and obstacles to any future programs. The writer of the letter notes that behavioral control was restricted to distances of 100 to 200 yards at most, indicating a significant constraint on the practicality of such an endeavor.
Those poor puppies.
Yeah.
I kept reading this. I looked up when I was doing more research into this. Really, this really reads like some sicko at Langley was able to convince some bureaucrat that, yeah, we need to experiment on this, because as the letter found out, there's no practicality to this. After 100 or 200 yards, the dog, you can't control the dog, you can't do anything with it, and frankly, what does the CIA need a remote-controlled dog for? That can only really operate in an open field.
Yeah.
How many agents or any spy seekers are in open fields anywhere? So this really seemed like some sicko's attempt of like, I just want to experiment and see what happens about remote controls. I mean, this is bad, and also, honey, you ain't gonna like the next one either, because this involves her. We're about to find out what Pam's favorite animal is and what they kind of did.
All right.
They did not.
Yes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Project Oxygas, a CIA initiative, involved the use of captured wild bottlenose dolphins for various espionage and sabotage tasks. Yes, they were suicide dolphins.
Amongst other things.
This is very well known.
Yeah.
The project aimed to train these dolphins to deliver simulated weapons packages over open sea distances to the propellers of moored PT boats. Additionally, the CIA envisioned using dolphins for tasks such as harbor and coastal recon, photographic surveillance, and placement of rocket detection units, sonar, acoustic, and seismic buoys and sensors. The agency acquired at least 2 wild bottlenose dolphins for the program, intending to train them to infiltrate enemy bays and harbors, attach explosive devices to ship hulls, and then return to a waiting submarine in international waters. Despite the ambitious plans, the program encountered several challenges. One major issue was communication between trainers and dolphins, as the animals sometimes showed a temper and only followed orders from familiar trainers. The program also faced difficulties in controlling the dolphins and ensuring their reliable performance in unfamiliar environments. While tests were conducted, including full-scale tests in January 1965, the program did not yield the desired results. By 1967, the CIA recognized the limitations of the program and sought assistance from the Navy's Office of Naval Research. Despite efforts to train dolphins for intelligence-gathering tasks such as retrieving dead drops left by spies in shallow water, challenges persisted. Dolphins struggled to travel long distances in unfamiliar waters, often getting distracted and lacking confidence in unfamiliar environments. Ultimately, the CIA ceased funding the program in 1970, and the materials were archived. However, the Navy continued to work with dolphins, training them to search for mines and other underwater explosive devices, a program that continues to this day.
Yep, the Navy actually had. I saw the actual.
Yeah, you can actually be a dolphin trainer in the Navy.
It's very.
They don't get hurt, do they?
No, they're
think of them as bomb dogs, just in the water.
Oh.
They are training them to sniff out these point your divers to
branch. I'm surprised you never even knew that.
They point your divers to the right direction. The divers go down there, take the bomb, and leave. Oh, and then the dolphins go and they treat the dolphins very well now.
Yes,
yeah,
the Navy does.
You do realize what my second option was, right?
Oh yeah, the Navy. I know.
The only reason I didn't do it was because I get seasick.
She does.
Fuck the Navy.
Say it's sink the Navy.
Yeah.
Go Army.
They're all seamen.
Fully little favors.
So, Harris Isbell.
So now, folks, we're moving away from the animals. So, more or less, while MK Ultra and the CIA did do a lot of the animal experimentations, those were kind of the main highlights as they were. Now we're getting into back to regular old, good old fashioned, human testing.
Yeah, that everybody loves.
Yep.
So, Harris Isbell, born on June 7th, 1910, in Arkansas, was a prominent American pharmacologist known for his research on the effects of drugs on humans.
We apologize to our viewers in Arkansas for saying their
There's
state.
people that live in Arkansas?
I guess.
I didn't even realize it was an actual state.
Somebody's living in Little Rock.
They're probably all cousins.
That's Alabama.
I thought that was Alabama.
That too. No, Alabama, they're first cousins.
Yeah.
Arkansas, they're second cousins. So it's a little more accepted. He obtained his MD from Tulane University School of Medicine in 1934 and went on to hold various research positions before becoming the director of research for the NIMH Addiction Research Center at the Public Health Service Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky in 1945, which is only about an hour and a half away from us.
That's why.
Isbell's research at the ARC focused on understanding physical dependence with opiates and barbiturates. Later, he also investigated psychedelic drugs, including LSD, as part of the MKUltra Project, a covert CIA program. His work was published in renowned academic journals such as the Journal of Pharmacology and Experimental Therapeutics, Psychopharmacologia, and the AMA Archives of Neurology and Psychiatry.
Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. I couldn't pronounce it.
What?
It's Psychopharmacologia.
God, I'm not even going to tell you how many minutes I wasted trying to pronounce that.
Psychopharmacologia.
Okay. Say that 5 times fast.
No. It's the study of psych meds.
Yeah.
Is all it is. In recognition of his contributions, Isbell received the U.S. Public Health Service Meritorious Service Award in 1962. Attorney General, some unknown person, Robert F. Kennedy.
Who?
I have no idea who the guy is. Praised him as an extraordinarily able director and coordinator of multidisciplinary research, and an outstanding investigator in his own right, whose work in clinical pharmacology has exerted far-reaching influences on medical practice.
Sounds like some asshole lawyer from Boston.
Yeah, probably would have had a good time as a politician. But I don't know. That's just a shot in the dark.
Oh, God.
Well, we've made...
Coming soon, the assassination of Kennedy.
Yeah.
Which Kennedy? There's been a few.
All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we could touch on all of them.
We will. We will do a thing on the Kennedy family.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Even to this day.
Yeah.
They still have a lot of issues. Lawyers, Boston lawyers.
Yeah.
Whole family of them. After leaving the ARC in 1963, Isbell became a professor of medicine and pharmacology at the University of Kentucky School of Medicine. Throughout his career, he published over 125 papers on the effects of various drugs, including opiates, synthetic opioids, barbiturates, alcohol, amphetamine, ibogaine, multiple psychedelics, and THC on human subjects. His research contributed significantly to the understanding of drug effects and addiction treatment. Isbell passed away on December 23rd, 1994.
And now we're getting into his volunteers.
So what's funny is this is in Lexington. I lived in Lexington for almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
I literally lived right by the school.
Really?
I was like 2 miles away from the school.
Yeah. Fun fact, everybody, these were not real volunteers.
And I was supposed to work for the school.
Oh.
They offered me a police position, and I turned it down. So I didn't want to babysit a bunch of college kids.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun.
The subjects in Harris Isbell's experiments, referred to as volunteers, were recruited from the Lexington Public Health Service Hospital, which treated drug abuse and housed both sentenced drug offenders and voluntary patients. The subjects were male narcotics offenders with a history of drug addiction, and they signed a simple consent form to participate in the experiments. They were motivated to participate by payment in the form of drugs, typically opiates, and by the separate living environment within the Addiction Research Center, the ARC, which offer the possibility of small private room. It is important to note that the use of prison subjects and the nature of payment in these experiments would be difficult or impossible to justify by current human subjects and informed consent standards. Concerns include the potential for coercion in a prison environment and providing drugs to abstinent addicts as payment.
I couldn't get over that. It was like, here, well, you'll get a nicer room and we'll pay you in cocaine.
We'll pay you in the thing you're here to get rid of. Yeah.
I was like, ugh.
The subjects were described as physically healthy former drug addicts who were not psychotic, although they often had, quote, character disorders or inadequate personalities, end quote. Some of the more extreme experiments, such as those involving LSD doses for 77 days in a row, were conducted on quote-unquote Negro males, although this was not a consistent pattern. Despite the risky nature of some experiments, including inducing addiction and severe withdrawal, there were apparently no fatalities, though there was at least one instance of a subject experiencing a severe negative reaction to LSD.
I find that very hard to believe. There was not one fatality.
Recorded.
That's what I'm saying.
Subjects sometimes dropped out of experiments, and in some cases persuasion was required to convince them to continue, such as in the case of a subject who wished to drop out after a severe reaction to an LSD dose. The studies conducted by Harris Isbell took place in a dedicated experimental ward with readily available medical personnel. The methodology appeared scientifically sound, including proper balancing of experimental conditions, within subject design, single, sometimes double, blind procedures, placebo conditions, and careful documentation of procedures. However, the small number of subjects in some experiments was a statistical concern.
I think it's very important to understand a lot of these subjects. This MK Ultra ultimately gives most, if not all, of these experiments were at best of a dubious ethical, standard. At worst, they were just downright bizarre.
Yeah.
But I think it is very important to understand that most of with MK Ultra, that's why I pointed this one out, particularly when I was doing writing it up, is this was not done anywhere near Langley. Most people think that there was some secret lab and in the bowels of somewhere in rural Virginia where the CIA is just strapping people to gurneys and shocking them with a battery and see what happens.
All over the U.S.
U.S., Canada.
Exactly.
Well, and let's be honest, that's really what's wrong with Canada.
Yeah, it's just
all the LSD.
It's a whole country's a failed MK Ultra experiment.
Yeah.
But
that's for our Canada viewers.
Yeah.
Babe, aren't you from Canada?
I am, in point of fact, not. I am from
Maple Leafs fan.
Bite your tongue, sir. No, but I think it's very important to understand is that for the vast majority of MK Ultra studies, all the CIA did was really just give money to these people.
Or drugs.
Or drugs in some cases. And not as many as you would think, but in many cases, they just gave these people the money. And that was kind of the real, I guess, the real darkness behind all these things. I mean, most of these experiments, I feel, never would have seen the light of day if not for the CIA's funding, which came through I think it was called the Human Ecology Fund.
Yeah.
Which is, try to look it up, some information on it. All it really boiled down to was CIA gave money to universities, and they took them. Specifically, it was funded, a lot of it came through Cornell University. I mean, this is, like I said, this is kind of the real danger of a lot of these experiments and stuff, was that for government standards is that experiments is that they just did not, they didn't exactly do the dirty work themselves. They just made it possible for others to do these horrific experiments, especially the ones on the animals.
So the Human Ecology Program was established in 1954 as a joint program of the Departments of Medicine, Division of Neurology, and Psychiatry. Dr. Harold Wolf was the head of the program, which studied the interaction of people and their environment and its impact on their health. Some of the research was funded by the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, which had connections to the CIA. After Dr. Wolf's death in 1962, Dr. Lawrence Hinkle Jr. took over the program, which became a separate division in 1963. One major project led by Dr. Lawrence Hinkle Jr. was the heart study, in which male telephone employees were studied. The program was disbanded in 1988 when Dr. Hinkle retired.
Mm-hmm. Like you said.
This is from the box. It's one of the notes that's on the box of all of the documents for the project.
Ah,
I can find anything.
we know this.
So like in this box, there's division records, research studies, all of that stuff. And this is right from Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's out there. That I just got that file right from Cornell's website.
Oh yeah, this is like I said, a lot of that's where
that wasn't classified.
Oh no, that's
just the CIA side of stuff was.
Yeah.
For addiction studies, subjects were first made drug-free, with exceptions for cigarettes and coffee, and then addiction was induced by regular administration of the substance being studied. Addiction was determined by the occurrence of withdrawal symptoms when the substance was discontinued. Methadone or other substances were sometimes administered during withdrawal to alleviate symptoms. After cold turkey withdrawal was evaluated, subjects were gradually weaned off the substance. Now, I'm going to say this. As a law enforcement officer has dealt with druggies and all of that, methadone is just as bad as anything else. It is still a narcotic that is given to alleviate symptoms of withdrawal. People get put, Florida's huge about putting people on the methadone program, but then they get addicted to methadone.
But they control the methadone, so that's...
Yeah, but it doesn't do it. Everybody needs to quit cold turkey. Stick them in a room, lock them in a room, let them sweat it out.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only reason.
Because
a druggie is a druggie. They're 9 times out of 10 they go back to the drug because they don't quit it cold turkey. They do this methadone shit, and it feeds their addiction. Still, they still get the high. They just are now addicted to methadone.
A lot of them, or not a lot, but sometimes it can happen that they go through those cold turkey withdrawal symptoms, and it's like, I never want to feel that again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to take it again.
Yeah. So, in euphoria studies, various doses of drugs, typically opioids, were evaluated to see if they induced similar effects as 30 milligrams of morphine, which is considered to be euphoric and a component of addiction liability. 30 milligrams of morphine is a lot.
Yeah.
30 milligrams is a ton. You will see stars.
That is a dangerous kind of happy.
I have very bad reaction to narcotics. And Ben can tell you, I have one of two things. I'm having nightmares and seeing shit, or I am happy and thinking I'm on top of the world.
Yeah. When I had my back surgery and I just took a one muscle relaxer, too happy. There is such a thing as too happy.
So just to put it into perspective, the average dose is between 10 and 30 milligrams every 4 hours of morphine. And that's for cancer patients that are dealing with cancer pains. It's a lot. I'm gonna see if the next time we do something with medical, I'm gonna see if we'll record this on a night that my mother can join us and give us the medical side of stuff. My mom's a nurse, has been a nurse for 10 years now, so
that'd be great.
See if we can get the medical side of some stuff. I mean, I have medical knowledge, but not to the extent that she has.
I mean, I could ask my mom.
I would say you should.
Well, my mom's also been a nurse for like 20 years.
So, in psychedelic studies, subjects could choose to stay in individual rooms or mingle with others. Physical measurements such as pulse, blood pressure, temperature, reflex sensitivity, and pupil diameter were taken before and after ingesting the substance. Psychological measurements included self-evaluation forms and evaluations by trained observers. Some subjects had negative reaction to LSD, while others found the experiments pleasant or even loved it as long as the dosage was not too high.
I would pay money to see what the self-evaluating forms actually said.
I feel good.
There's just a line that runs through.
Good. Starting in 1956, Harris Isbell and his colleagues conducted studies on various psychedelic substances, including LSD, psilocybin, psilocin, DMT, bufotenine, morning glory seeds, and mescaline.
Do I even want to ask what the morning glory seeds are? Please don't tell me.
You've never heard of morning glory seeds?
I'm terrified to ask what a morning glory seed is.
So it's a wildflower that is native to Mexico and Central America. You can actually buy them, and they're very beautiful flowers. But they were known to have psychedelic tendencies. Then you have...
I was thinking something else.
So you have DMT again, which is another psychoactive, and then we touched on all the other ones.
Oh yeah.
The only one we didn't touch on is bufotenine, and that is a very weak hallucinogenic that is done by injection.
Ooh.
It's an intravenous injection. So it is basically toad poison.
Oh.
Yeah. We first started using it in 1934, but it's toad poison.
Oh, please tell me nobody looked at toad to try and get high. It sounds like that.
Most likely.
So these substances were sometimes described as psychotomimetic. So it mimics psychoactive.
Oh.
The research on LSD and psilocybin was initiated by an explicit request from the CIA, according to a 1986 interview with Isbell.
Now I have
psychocymatic.
Now I have that stuck in all your heads.
Phenomena. For LSD, Isbell found that the dosage of 1 to 2 micrograms per kilogram of body weight induced striking effects, including mood change, perceptual distortion, and pupil dilation. Tolerance to LSD developed rapidly, with subjective effects significantly lessened after just 3 days of consecutive doses. However, tolerance also disappeared rapidly, as a subsequent dose after 3 days without LSD again had a large effect. Isbell concluded that the LSD reaction had only a superficial resemblance to chronic forms of major psychoses. Isbell and Logan reported in 1957 that chlorpromazine could block or reverse the effects of LSD, while azacyclinol had no effect, or pre-treatment with Risperidone augmented the effects of LSD. Pre-treatment with scopolamine, phenoxybenzamine, or BAS had little effect on subsequent LSD doses.
How the hell are you fucking reading that shit? It just seems like fucking words in the alphabet just jumbled together.
Yeah, so someone vomit out a bunch of letters.
Trying to study this. I kind of have medical training. But regarding psilocybin, Isbell found in 1959 that it had physical and psychological effects similar to LSD, but with a shorter duration, less potency. A 1961 study by Isbell et al. Found that 12 days of treatment with LSD induced tolerance to either LSD or psilocybin, and that psilocybin also induced tolerance to both LSD and psilocybin, suggesting a shared mechanism of action. In a 1962 study, Walbach et al. Reported that mescaline and LSD had similar effects, with direct tolerance induced by mescaline and cross-tolerance between mescaline and LSD. However, in contrast to psilocybin and mescaline results, Isbell et al. Found in 1964 that tolerance to intramuscular LSD did not provide tolerance to intramuscular DMT. You guys got that? So, you want me to kind of break it down?
Yeah, why don't you break it down? Because
I just want to know what et al means.
Et al, it's that the doctors like themselves, like it's kind of it kind of comes with the doctor. I'm gonna give you no, not et al. Et al is Italia, so it's and others. Yeah, and others. So et al. So it's this doctor and his staff.
Okay.
Instead of, because there would have been hundreds of names if you're going off of this. So it means and others. So basically what he's saying in the first one, so he's looking at psilocybin. So psilocybin gave the similar effects of LSD, but a shorter duration, and it wasn't as strong. Where he found that treating with LSD gave tolerance to either LSD or psilocybin, one or the other, but treatment of psilocybin gave tolerance to both LSD and psilocybin, which means that LSD and psilocybin, who are totally different drugs, have a similar chemical makeup for the body.
Okay.
Now, in the second one, they're talking about mescaline and LSD. So with mescaline, the cross tolerance means that mescaline and LSD reacted the same way in the body. Now, psilocybin and mescaline, because remember, we're doing psilocybin, mescaline, and LSD. So here we have mescaline and LSD work. LSD and psilocybin work. Mescaline and psilocybin, however, are different. So injecting LSD intramuscular, so literally injecting it instead of ingesting it, was not providing tolerance to DMT, which is mescaline. So the makeup of psilocybin and mescaline are different. They're different from each other. So they were then going to take psilocybin and mescaline and try and tweak those to see what works better. That's what all that big wording is saying.
Yeah.
Isabel's research also investigated the effects of 13 different congeners of LSD and their correlation with potency as a serotonin antagonist in smooth muscle. Basically, different forms or different parts of LSD, they were looking at the potency as giving a high when injecting into the soft muscle, which the soft muscle then, if you inject into the soft muscle instead of into the veins, it reacts differently into the body. With the exception of ALD52, all substances were less potent than LSD, and there was a low correlation between smooth muscle effects and psychotomimetic effects. So, the end of MK Ultra.
Yeah, it did end, folks.
Maybe. We don't know.
No.
Could still be going.
Ended.
Could still be going to this day. CIA's MKUltra program, which aimed to find ways to influence and control human behavior using psychoactive drugs and other means, came under public scrutiny in the 1970s. Ben remembers this.
I do not. I wasn't born.
In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of most MKUltra files, but a cache of documents survived. It was discovered in 1977 following a Freedom of Information Act request. These documents were investigated during the 1977 Senate hearings. The New York Times reported in December 1974 that the CIA had conducted illegal domestic activities, including experiments on U.S. citizens during the 60s. This led investigations by Congress, including the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission, which revealed that experiments had indeed been conducted on both unwitting and cognizant human subjects. These experiments involved psychoactive drugs like LSD and mescaline, as well as other chemical, biological, and psychological methods. The Church Committee concluded that prior consent was not obtained from any of the subjects, and it questioned the decision by the agencies not to set guidelines for experiments. In response, President Gerald Ford issued an executive order in 1976 prohibiting experimentation with drugs on human subjects without informed consent. Subsequent orders by Presidents Carter and Reagan expanded this directive, and then they kind of just disappeared. Those orders don't technically exist anymore.
Yeah.
So the Church Committee was a Senate committee established in 1975 to investigate abuses by the intelligence agencies in the U.S., particularly the CIA, FBI, and NSA. Committee's creation was prompted by a series of revelations in the press about intelligence activities, including spying on the civilian population. They don't do that anymore.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you guys aren't listening to us. Assassination attempts on foreign leaders.
We all have our tinfoil hats on.
Hold on.
We don't do assassination attempts on foreign leaders anymore. And efforts to collect information on the political activities of U.S. citizens. We don't do that anymore.
No, not
also
at all.
to the FBI and CIA.
Facebook.
Yeah. Also to the FBI and CIA agents who are listening to us, please follow us. If you've been listening to this long, it would be a courtesy at least. Thank you.
Well, I was just going to say, and the rest of the alphabet soup, because it's really the NSA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freaking NSA can't.
NSA doesn't count.
No, they really don't.
They're just a bunch of desk jockeys.
Yeah, NSA.
Yeah. You and your special agents.
Also, but if you follow us and subscribe to our other stuff, we will totally do something cool with you guys.
Yeah, you might win a free set of dice.
Yeah. We'll make NSA dice.
They'll
have fucking speakers in them.
And microphones.
And real microphones so we can listen to the NSA for once.
Yes.
How does it feel, NSA? The committee's final report, published on April 1976, was extensive, consisting of 6 books and 7 volumes of hearings. It included an interim report on alleged assassination plots involving foreign leaders and case studies on covert operations. One of the most significant revelations of the committee was Operation Shamrock, in which major telecommunication companies shared their traffic with the NSA from 1945 to the early 1970s, feeding directly into NSA's watch list.
Okay, I didn't even know that the NSA was around back then.
Oh, so
that was
NSA's been around for a while.
The thing is, though, Kate is right. They have been around for a while, but for like the first half, I believe up until the 80s, the NSA was actually considered a classified agency. So people who weren't
supposed to know about them.
Yeah.
People
who work for the NSA, people who work for the NSA technically worked for like the State Department or the FBI or even the CIA.
So they were formed in 1952. The NSA was formed.
Oh.
And then at the end of 1952. Obviously, we know FBI is the oldest. They were formed in 1908.
Then it's CIA, right?
Well, kind of, because you had the DIA and the USIC, it's the CIA. They were just separate.
Yeah.
The DIA was 1961, which is Defense Intelligence Agency, and then the USIC, which is the United States Intelligence Community, was 1981, and then they converged.
I've actually seen the DIA's building at Bolling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., and let me tell you something, that is hands down one of the most intimidating buildings I've ever seen. Like, you actually drive by, you would think it would be like, like barbed wire guard towers. There's none of that. It's just this big, dark, black glass building that's just there. I think it actually makes the lack of security around it makes it even more like holy shit.
And then, just so everybody's aware, you understand, everybody that wants to make fun of the Air Force, the head of the NSA is Air Force right now.
Yeah.
He, Timothy D. Hall. He is the commander, the director of the NSA and chief of Central Security Service.
Director Hall, if you're listening, we don't mean anything by it. Please don't send anyone here.
Please General.
Go Air Force.
He's a 4-star. Yeah, he's a 4-star. So,
my butt didn't just pucker.
Yeah, he's a 4-star. So, Director, if you want to come on our podcast, we would love to talk to you, because we are all former Air Force. So, I know you guys hate this, but if he's listening, fly, fight, win. We got to get him on our good side.
That is true. Let's just we can do fly, fight, win. Just no Air Force song.
Oh, please.
Off we go.
Nightmares.
So the committee's reports were classified, but over 50,000 pages were declassified in the 1992 under the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act. The reports are considered the most extensive review of intelligence activities ever made available to the public.
Interesting fun fact, the church committee also uncovered some other theories that were about the President Kennedy assassination. The church committee was really not so much about just MK Ultra. It was all government and the government's intelligence community's malfeasance. It was, we learned about MK Ultra. We learned about,
They were all about declassification.
so all the info that we have about, like, Fidel Castro and the 500 attempts the CIA made to try and kill him. This was the committee where we learned about this, because this wasn't before this. We didn't know this has been going on. Not really, unless you were somehow involved in these one of those many plots against Castro. You didn't know. This is where a lot of the myths of that we associate today with the CIA came from. The mafia being used in the CIA, the everything.
The funny part, the closest we ever came to killing Castro was we actually put poison in his cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And the time we did it, that was when he quit smoking. He quit smoking in, I think it was like 1985, and the cigars never got to him. We had put a toxin in his cigars, and he would have smoked it would have killed him, but they never reached him because he quit smoking.
You telling me we were still trying to kill that SOB?
In 1985, yeah.
God, didn't...
Yeah.
Pack it in, guys.
Yeah.
That's what I could have just imagined Reagan here.
Sorry, that was in 1960.
Oh, I was about to say.
But he still, it never got to him.
Well,
somehow the cigars disappeared.
God, I hope... Oh, could you imagine the poor schmuck who got them? And he
who literally dropped dead.
Oh, yes, I'm stealing Castro's cigar. So... In addition to the horrors of MK Ultra, a few other nefarious projects conducted by the CIA were discovered by the Church Commission. These projects were mostly aimed at illegal surveillance of both foreign nationals and American citizens. It also revealed the CIA interest in conducting political assassinations of unpopular foreign leaders. Now, as we talked before, Project Shamrock was a clandestine espionage program conducted by the U.S. government, specifically the Armed Forces Security Agency, or AFSA, and its successor, the National Security Agency. It was the sister project to Project Minaret, and both projects involved the interception of telegraphic data. Project Minaret focused on accumulating all telegraphic data entering or exiting the U.S., while Project Shamrock involved the interception and analysis of telegrams from major cable companies, including Western Union, RCA, and ITT.
Damn.
Yeah. Under Project Shamrock, the NSA had direct access to daily microfilm copies of all incoming and outgoing and transiting telegrams. The intercepted messages were disseminated to various intelligence agencies, including the FBI, CIA, Secret Service, Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, which
DEA
then turns into the DEA, and Department of Defense. The program operated without court authorization or warrants. The precursor to Project Shamrock began in 1940 with a clandestine arrangement between the Army's adjutant general and RCA, which involved photographing all internal commercial cablegrams. This arrangement...
International
commercial cablegrams. This arrangement set a precedent for government interception of telegraphic data. During World War II, all cables were turned over to the government for inspection, and this collection program continued after the war without much attention.
We'll just blame Ben's spelling on that one.
Yeah. Project Shamrock continued to operate in the post-World War II era, with telegraph companies initially expressing concerns about the legality of their actions. However, these concerns were alleviated after a promise from the Attorney General that the government would not prosecute the companies for their participation. Congress also approved a bill that made it illegal for unauthorized individuals to reveal information related to code breaking, which was part of Shamrock's operations. At its height, Project Shamrock involved the interception and analysis of 150,000 messages per month by NSA personnel. The program came under scrutiny in 1975, leading to its termination by NSA Director Lou Allen. Congressional investigations into Shamrock led to the creation of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, in 1978, which limited the powers of NSA and established a process of warrants and judicial reviews for surveillance activities. And of course, FISA still exists today. That's why they can't phone tap you, even though they do.
They have to get a warrant for it.
But they don't. They don't do that.
Patriot Act.
Actually, that's been struck down.
Yeah, Patriot Act is done. It's been done
for a while.
For a long time. They started to get rid of a lot of that stuff. I think it's been like 20 years now.
Yeah,
at least.
Like 15, 20 years.
They, obviously Patriot Act became huge after 9/11.
Yeah.
And then when they decided, oh, hey, we're not being attacked anymore.
And this is actually kind of illegal.
We need to shut this down. So it got shut down. The Congress was like, no, you can't do this. So let's talk about the CIA's family jewels. Not
those kind, folks.
Maybe. Family jewels.
Are we talking about like skeletons in the closet?
Sure. So the family jewels is a set of reports detailing illegal, inappropriate, and otherwise sensitive activities conducted by the CIA from 59 to 73. These activities were commissioned in 73 by then CIA Director James R. Schlesinger in response to press accounts of CIA involvement in the Watergate scandal. The reports were intended to compile a report of current or past CIA actions that may have fallen outside of the agency's charter. Some of the activities described in the report include confinement of the KGB defector Yuri Ivanovich Nasenko. It's pretty good. That might be regarded as a violation of the kidnapping laws. I don't agree with that.
No.
Although he's a defector, he's former KGB, I believe that's within the CIA rights. Because
it really wouldn't be the first time someone sent a fake defector to the other side to
I could understand. Yeah, I can understand that one.
Yeah, I can too.
Just because of depending on what, like, if it's KGB, so
well, this was 59 to 73, so this is Cold War.
So a KGB defector, absolutely.
Oh, well, you're getting put in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Wiretapping of syndicated columnists, physical surveillance of investigative journalists and muckrakers, and opening of mail to and from the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. I agree with this.
Same here.
Now, the investigative journalists and muckrakers, depends. Well, it depends on what they're investigating and who they're working for.
That is true.
Because you got to remember, again, this is during the Cold War. A lot of these people could have been Soviet spies or Chinese spies. So, but yeah, opening mail to and from Soviet Union, People's Republic of China, that should be allowed.
Yep.
Funding of behavior modification research on unwitting U.S. citizens, including unscientific, non-consensual human experiments like MKUltra. Obviously, this is
no-go.
That's a no-no. Assassination plots against foreign leaders, including Cuban dictator Fidel Castro, Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba, President Rafael Trujillo of the Dominican Republic, and Rene Schneider, commander-in-chief of the Chilean army. I agree with these. Especially, you got to think of back then.
So, interestingly, with Lumumba and Trujillo, they did. It's not so much the CIA assassinated these guys. We just kind of let them become assassinated. We knew that was coming. We were just
we said, "Whoop!" Our hands are tied.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Did we forget to tell them that was coming? Oh,
I agree with this though because you got to look at all of these countries at the time
were pieces like
it was dictatorships.
Yep.
The problem especially with the Congo, the problem was the person who came after them
was worse.
Oh yeah,
especially
the Congo.
That is a double-edged sword. Like,
So then we assassinate the next one.
Well,
but here was the thing. The thing that they were trying to do back then was assassinate one and put the person that we want in power there, and then they become an ally.
Yeah, because it's been with Lumumba, with Patrice Lumumba. He was almost kind of like another Nasser in Egypt. He played both sides, but he ultimately sided with the Soviets. So the guy who took him over was adamantly, almost fanatically anti-communist. But he did worse things to
like more of a warlord.
I mean, he gave King Leopold of Belgium a run for his money with all the horrors he inflicted on his own people.
Next is the surveillance of dissident groups and U.S. citizens. This is a no-go for me.
No.
Yeah, you don't spy on your own people, especially the CIA. You are supposed to operate outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
You don't spy on your own people.
Nope.
Massing of files on over 9,900 U.S. citizens related to the anti-war movement. Now, this...
No, I don't agree with this.
But this is if you're looking at the anti-war movement, this is Cold War. You had a lot of defectors. You have Project Paperclip, stuff like that, where you don't know who is who.
Well, I mean, by that logic, then surveilling dissident groups in the U.S. would be okay too. I mean, most of the anti-war movement, especially there's Vietnam, were U.S. college kids for the most part. So this kind of falls into what it was before. Just because you don't like what they're saying doesn't mean you can be like, well, we can survey them, make sure this. It's like
but there's also the triggers.
Yeah,
they're trigger words that we still use today.
I agree with it, but it would have been better if it was like a joint thing with like the FBI.
Oh, sure. Most of them were, but again, most of the time these were just anti-war movement. They didn't agree with Vietnam. They didn't agree with us policing and propping up the anti-communist dictators in Vietnam and everything, which were worse than the communists.
But those trigger words are very big. So they probably had a list of trigger words that were said multiple times by these people that are like, okay, now we need to look into you.
Well, a lot of times, if you look at it a lot more deeper, a lot of times they would just infiltrate these groups and start chaos or whatever and blame it for them. These were most of these groups were just anti-war movements. They were counterculture. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of them, especially the ones like the Black Panthers. Don't agree with those guys whatsoever. But again, these were by and large fairly peaceful organizations that they just didn't go. They went against the status quo of the day, and the CIA was wrong to survey them, and the FBI as well. Outside of normal, okay, these guys are a little radical, like the Weathermen movement. They were radical. They did bombings and everything, but the FBI wasn't just watching them. They were infiltrating everything.
Next is polygraph experiments with the sheriff of San Mateo County, California.
I couldn't find anything really about this.
Polygraphs are whatever. I've taken hundreds of them. Testing of electronic equipment on U.S. telephone circuits.
No.
They still do that, so.
Yeah.
So the release of these documents in 2007 revealed the extent of the CIA's illegal and covert activities during the Cold War era. The reports also highlighted the agency's involvements in attempts to assassinate Fidel Castro 5 million times, which involved collaboration with members of the American Mafia. The involvement of the American Mafia and CIA attempts to assassinate Cuban leader Fidel Castro, as revealed in the Family Jewels documents, is a significant and controversial aspect of their activities during that time. Documents show that the CIA recruited Robert Mayhew, a former FBI agent and aide to Howard Hughes, to approach mobster Johnny Roselli. Under the guise of representing international corporations with interest in eliminating Castro, Mayhew enlisted the help of Roselli, who introduced him to mobster leaders Sam Giancana and Santo Trafficante Jr. Supplied with poison pills by the CIA, Giancana and Trafficante attempted, but ultimately failed, to have individuals place the poison in Castro's food. This revelation sheds light on the complex and morally ambiguous alliances and tactics employed by the CIA during the Cold War era.
Trafficante was huge in the Italian mob in Florida, and Giancana was the successor to Al Capone. So,
with this, we end MK Ultra. Mm-hmm. So, final thoughts as we wrap up and move on. MK Ultra was probably one of the worst things that the government ever did. You can, at the beginning, you can understand where they're coming from, and then they push it too far, like the government usually does. You can understand why they want to do it. You can understand what their fear is, especially during the Cold War. You can understand all of that because they were under threat of nuclear attack, and you had all of that stuff, but then they pushed it way too far. If they would have done experiments on people that were willing to do it, that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's something totally different because that's what we do now. People willingly sign up for it. But doing the unwitting subjects or drugging people, drugging druggies and things like that, it's something that never should have been done. It is MK Ultra is the one thing that CIA does not like to talk about because it is a dark part of their past that they like to brush away.
No, I don't blame them. I mean,
they destroyed all their files on it.
Oh, absolutely. Robert Helms was literally holding the Church Commission at bay while his people were literally shredding and burning all the documents. The only reason we know what we know is because they missed like a warehouse full of them. I mean, for me, MK Ultra, I agree. You know, in the beginning, no one knew about a lot of these drugs and their effects. They wanted to see under better circumstances, but as we've seen, it was really clear from the very beginning when they realized, hey, this isn't really effective, but they just kept going. Really, it was just, I feel like it was just a way for the CIA, all the sickos and the, money embezzlers that the CIA had, just to waste taxpayer dollars, which, I mean, realistically could have gone to better usage of actually providing intelligence for our country to safeguard against, the Soviets or whatever other threat we had. Instead, they're trying to put radios and stuff on cats and, killing people with LSD. I mean, ultimately, what did it get us? We learned, like, well, these don't work. I'm like, yeah, no shit. I mean, they should have, about most of these experiments, about not even a year into them, they realized, yeah, this isn't working. Let's keep going. Let's,
yeah.
Lord.
Well, my thing is, how much worse was it, really?
Probably way worse.
Because we don't have... That's only, the few documents that we did have.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how much worse. This is bad. We do drug trials now and stuff where people are willingly subjecting themselves to it.
Yeah.
But how much worse was it, actually?
Probably worse.
Yeah. So, we want to thank you for visiting the Scarlet Tavern. Please remember to turn in your glasses, push in your seat, and as always, tip the bard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.